Hey everyone, good evening, and welcome to this broadcast of how I, someone who vehemently hated reading, began to love reading, and how I end my entire journey through that. So, when I was younger, I really did not like reading. And this carried with me into the beginning stages of adulthood, essentially, where every time that I read, it was more because I was forced to read or because things were restricted for me if I didn't read. And things that would follow suit with that would be an hour of reading would equate to an hour of television. But that didn't feel the same because an hour of reading felt like 20 years of reading for 10 minutes of television. So so there were things like that and required readings for school and things like that, and it just didn't feel good. It felt like I was being forced to do something I didn't want to do, which only aggrandized my distaste for it. And nothing I was reading really captivated me. There was nothing connecting me to that kind of material, whether it was fictional or historical or whatever the case was. It just never really wrapped me. So, for those that have seen episode 1 of this broadcast, then you know of the person that I'm going to refer to as Mary. And for those that haven't seen it, a long story short version, she and I were in an intimate relationship. It went very poorly at the end of it. Beginning was great, but it just quickly dismantled. It was just awful in a variety of ways. But at the very end of the relationship, she was telling me, or rather, exposing to my face all of the insecurities that I had entrusted her with. And in a key way, I see this as more of a blessing because it wasn't just the insecurities I had, but it was her weaponizing them against me to force me to reconcile with them, to overcome them, to not be burdened by them anymore, to not have them as insecurities. And one of the things that she pointed out was my lack of academic intelligence. I was so focused on music when I was in school, and that was pretty much everything that I put my attention to. I focused vehemently on my music, on my career, on connections, but I really wasn't knowledgeable outside of my expertise. And I felt pretty limited by that. So what ended up happening is after the relationship ended, I told myself I am never going to allow someone to weaponize my insecurities again. I'm going to focus on transitioning my weaknesses or insecurities into strengths and my strengths into specialties. So, what ended up happening was before the relationship ended, she and I went to this bargain bookstore and we're just walking around, and I found a book that just kind of happened upon me because I always had an interest in people, but as someone who has a hard time socializing with others, I figured I can just read about other people's experiences. And that's when I came across the book Awakening the Buddha Within by Lama Surya Das, which isn't really a how-to book, but the story is more of a Westerner being introduced to Eastern and Buddhist philosophy and how that impacted his life and why that philosophy is so important to him and what the philosophy is, and goes into depth on it. And it's quite a lovely book, honestly. And after the relationship ended, I picked it up and I just started reading it in small increments. I convinced myself that every time that I picked up a book to read that I was going to get a headache. My eyes, I gave as an excuse, just did not like books. But for some reason could be in front of screens for a lot longer, which now by today's standards is the exact opposite. I don't like being in front of a screen for too long, even though there are addictive qualities and I catch myself falling into that addictive screen time from time to time. But with that said, with my eyes specifically, I mainly see out of one of my eyes. Not to say that I'm blind in the other eye, I can absolutely see. It's just the way that I see is through one eye, and it's either one or the other, and I have a default, let's say. And I'm also farsighted, and that's why I wear glasses pretty much all the time outside of my YouTube channel. So With that said, I just started reading just a few pages a day because that was really all I could handle at that time. But because I had a driving force, because I had something that was driving me towards betterment, towards I'm never going to be taken advantage of again. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to understand what power games are. I'm going to understand how to defend myself against other people playing power games, especially against me or those that I care about and love. I'm going to go out into the world and ensure that I have as few points to be assailed from as possible. I'm going to be a much stronger in terms of my inner strength, my physical strength. I'm going to be impregnable. And when I started reading, I started gaining that confidence of I'm learning about another person's story, which is interesting to me, and that compelled me to keep reading that book. But also, I had a deeper drive. I had something that I was so spiritually connected with, which was to ensure I couldn't be taken advantage of. And that kind of habit just formed almost instantly. Anytime or any day rather that I didn't read, I had this feeling of guilt like I had every opportunity to do this. I had 10 minutes today that I could have just focused on a few pages of this book. And reading became more of a proclivity of mine. So what ended up happening was after I finished the book, I had this enormous sense of accomplishment where I thought I just got through several hundred pages. Yes, it took a lot longer than it would today, but I wasn't comparing myself to other people or to where I wanted to be or anything like that. This was the first time that I actually got through a book by my own means, not because I was forced to or anything like that. So this felt amazing. And I learned a little bit in the process, a little bit about Eastern philosophy, a little bit about this man that went on his own journey. And that felt incredible. So in order to keep that spark alive of I'm not going to be assailed by anybody, I then got a recommendation from a person that I heavily respect. And his recommendation was The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. So I picked up that book. I got through it. A very unique book in how it's presented. And it was incredible. It fed me exactly what I needed at that time, which is how do I not get embroiled in other people's power games? And if people are specifically targeting me in their power games, how do I reflect that? And make sure that I'm either not involved or I manifest the strength necessary to put it to an end, and how strategic I can be in doing so. And the moment that I really started understanding the book itself and putting some of those laws into practice in my own life, not necessarily to repel against power games in every case, but more just to strengthen myself, like one of them being formlessness, and being able to correlate that with a little bit of Bruce Lee's philosophy, be like water, my friend, and feeding into a little bit of the philosophy that I even carry today, which is just to be adaptable, not to let things overwhelm or inundate you, even if they're catastrophic and really crushing, because the best way, in my opinion, the best way to move forward from hardship is to do exactly that, to move forward. When you are crushed and crippled by grief or by thoughts of revenge or hatred or this feeling of abhorring something, it just slows you down from what your goal really needs to be, which is your self-betterment and how you're going to showcase your personal unique sense of true greatness and beauty out with the rest of the world. And even if it's on a very small, intimate scale or on a very broad scale with a large audience, however it is that you choose to engage with that, you do so by your own means and what is authentically right for you. Anyway, I read that book. I thought it was amazing. I fell in love with the author after that book. So I picked up another book that I thought would not only feed also into my goal of not being taken advantage of, but something that I can just continue on with the author, which is The Laws of Human Nature. And this was my favorite book of his, of Robert Greene's. I read it twice. It's 600 to 700 pages long, and I just found it deeply insightful. I found so much, not just general wisdom, but the way that he describes his examples when talking about certain laws that humanity has faced throughout the course of its history. And the moment that I read those things, I went out into the world. I started looking at people in society in a new light, just kind of understanding how they cooperate with others, how society itself is structured based off of these connections. And I found this so deeply fascinating. And it helped instill in me the kinds of relationships that I wanted for myself, which included friendships in general, where I've mentioned this in my last video, where I have a very small friend group, and outside of those friends are tons of acquaintances and colleagues. And even today, out of my friend group, I really only communicate with most of them. And keep in mind that this friend group is made of 5 people, and I only communicate with one of them regularly, and I communicate with 2 others probably once every few months, and the other 2 I probably communicate with maybe once a year. And the reason that I still call them my friends, though, because becoming a friend to me is a very, very high bar. And that's not to sound conceited or pretentious by any means, but it's more to say that to me, a friend is a full-time job. It's, if they call you at 2 a.m. needing something, you're there, no questions asked. You are there to provide them the best support that you as a unique person are capable of providing. That doesn't mean offering unconditional love and support, but just providing what I'm capable of providing. And for me personally, that is listening to something with an open heart and an open mind, ensuring that I understand their struggles as much as I can, and use my own life experience to connect with it, and creating a solution to either get out of it or to ensure that that situation doesn't happen in the future to the best of their ability. Obviously, there are outside factors that doesn't guarantee everything, but I try to create a more pragmatic lens that kind of grounds the person into something actionable instead of being lost in their own emotions. And that's what I genuinely think is the right thing to do in many cases. So that's the approach that I try to take. But a lot of times people just want to be comforted emotionally, so they don't usually come to me for those things. Not to say that I'm incapable of that, but it's just not my particular style in addressing issues. So with that said, being a friend is a really high bar, but these people have proven to me over the course of the many years of our relationships that they're very trustworthy, and they're not someone who's going to betray that trust and that respect that I've given them, and same thing from them to me. So that's what I really value about my friend group, regardless if we talk a lot or not. And with that said, all tying back into the main pith of this video, which is how does this correlate to reading? It's just all about this one domino being knocked down into this was an insecurity. I'm going to correct this. I'm not going to let people view this as an insecurity. I'm going to be smarter for this. To this day, I am now approaching 1,100 vocabulary words in the English language that I had originally not known before I started this venture. And all of these words I've picked up through books that I've read, whether it was through Robert Greene or Mark Twain or Viktor Frankl, James Clear, etc., Charles Duhigg. There's so many different authors that I've learned from, and so many different words that I wanted to use to better expand my vocabulary and be able to better express my felicity, or appropriately express my thoughts in a way that is accurate. Because my vocabulary was limited, I couldn't really express my feelings in the way that I wanted to. Not to say that all emotions can be expressed in words. Sometimes it's just ineffable, but all in all, it's a really great tool to be able to express yourself in the way that you want to be expressed. At least for me, it is. Because it ensures that there's no miscommunication about what it is that I'm experiencing, what it is that you're experiencing, and how we can connect emotionally together and create a pragmatic solution on the foundations of emotional understanding that we can move forward together. And I think that's the real beauty of what it is that we're setting out to achieve here. So, with that said, the reading was just that first domino. It was, okay, now that I started reading, I have a little bit more self confidence to continue reading, to continue bolstering what it is that's really important to me, which is becoming a strong and kind man. And the more that I kept doing that, the more I started realizing, well, what's actually really important to me? It's this mission. Yes, but this mission isn't the entirety of my life. It is a life's task. It is something that I will continuously make progress in and never fully accomplish, but something that drives me. That's a beautiful thing, but that's not all encompassing of life. So I want to make sure that I can use the wisdom gained in this one area to strengthen other areas of my life. I was very closeted inside, introverted, just didn't really enjoy going out too much. And now that I'm going out into the world and talking to people, learning people's life stories, learning about their philosophy on the world, I've met so many beautiful people just in how they engage with the world and the setbacks that they face and how they engage in the world with their disabilities, with their setbacks, with their struggles and obstacles that are so unique to them. And I'd have to say one of the most beautiful people I met recently was this autistic girl named Beverly, but the way that she expressed herself and communicated her thoughts so well, she's just brilliant. And I had such a wonderful conversation with her. And it's just moments like that where I really zoom out and take things into perspective of the world is filled with so many beautiful and unique people where if we're not constantly at each other's throats all the time, then we can actually bounce ideas off of each other without becoming defensive and creating really beautiful opportunities towards true progress, not just one particular side of a coin enforcing its own ideology onto the rest of society, but actually creating real rapport with all angles of a situation and being able to create not just compromises, but create real intuitive ingenuity through these varying perspectives to progress together. And all of this perspective and deep thought wasn't possible until I was able to create a sense of inner strength for myself. I wasn't able to start going to the gym regularly until I started reading. I wasn't able to go out into the world and talk to people until I started reading. I needed something that I knew that I disliked, and I needed to be able to conquer it to give myself that motivation, to give myself that sense of meaning and drive to say, I can go through something that I used to despise and detest and even abhor and find something enjoyable about it. Appreciate it for more than just my mental association with it. Go beyond and ensure that there is something much more meaningful and impactful behind it. And because of that, I was able to not just read a book, but read several books and enjoy reading. Enjoy getting a glimpse in history, understanding people's thought processes throughout all of history, and the similarities and differences that we share today. And just being able to enjoy the process of growth, not just in reading, but in the entirety of my life, has been so magical. And I have loved and appreciated every single book that I have read, regardless if it proved powerful in how I carry my life. I just started reading a biography on Mark Twain, and I've just also finished reading Benjamin Franklin's autobiography and a biography on Abraham Lincoln as well. And even though Mark Twain's life is incredibly interesting and historical for sure, Samuel Clemens's is, it's not as deeply personal and how I can take his life story and incorporate it into my life in some powerful way. But it doesn't mean that I'm not capable of finding something within the book or his life story that isn't meaningful to me, because I can always learn something from somebody else's perspective or somebody else's life. And the more in depth it is, the greater of a chance that I can really step into their shoes and understand the world through their eyes. And I think that that's just beautiful. I love being able to see that there are so many powerful, beautiful, important people that we revere heavily in our history. And the more that I read their biographies or autobiographies or whatever, the more I see how imperfect they were as people. But the things that made them great wasn't the fact that they were imperfect, or the fact that their views and philosophies on life had some impurities in it. It's the fact that regardless of their own personal views, they still took action for the greater good and produced things that are some of the most beautiful and inspiring even by today's standards. That doesn't mean to excuse their impurities should they have committed any kind of atrocities, but there was a quote that I'm going to paraphrase by Abraham Lincoln, which is, and this is specifically targeting one thing, but I broadly apply it to the world, which is, in politics, it is very rare to ever come across something inherently good or inherently evil. You just have to choose the thing that produces the most good while accepting the corollaries that come with it. And when you apply that on a broader scale, every time you commit to an action in the world, there's a ripple that goes out. And that ripple can produce something really beautiful, like enriched soil produced crops, or it can cause a tsunami, depending on how big that ripple became in the world. Or it could just be dormant, depending on whatever circumstances have led it to just kind of fizzle out. But regardless, you have created movement and momentum in the world, which is a beautiful thing. Our planet thrives off of life, and the fact that we're providing a certain level of momentum and beauty and movement to the world, I think, is a wonderful thing. So the fact that we can use reading as a tool to better ourselves, to better understand other people's worldviews, whether they existed in a time previous to our own now or in the present day, regardless of what it is, we can always learn something from another person's perspective. We don't need to immediately become hostile because their points of view or perspective is differing than our own. It doesn't necessarily make them evil or harsh or a misguided person, just that they have a new philosophy on life that is an aberration to us or something that is unknown to us. And human beings have always feared the unknown. That's why we're very uncomfortable with change, but we're perfectly fine adapting to something should it be imposed on us. At the end of the day, I think it really just does come down to, what is it that you're actively doing to better yourself, to understand others, or in a better way of phrasing that is, what are you actively doing to make yourself a stronger version of yourself? Do you genuinely think it's okay to portray weakness so you can associate yourself with other weak people because there's strength in numbers and promote a certain sense of weakness? Or is it instead better to promote a certain sense of inner strength and become stronger as your own unique individual and inspire others around you to also become stronger, so that way we can create a society of strong people coming together and creating something really beautiful in the progress of society in whatever shape or form that looks like. And it all starts with one task that you have emotionally or mentally tied with as being arduous or onerous or uncomfortable, and conquering it. Not just conquering it, dominating it. Feeling so strong in the fact that you were able to do something that you never thought you wanted to do or even wanted to do. but you did it and you enjoyed it. And now it's time to move forward and do it again and again. Have that seed that you planted in the soil through that one task and let it branch out into something so beautiful. You have no idea how this plant is going to grow just in all directions, because you yourself have created such a valuable sense of inner strength that now you're unstoppable. You're just growing and growing, and you don't even recognize your own growth or strength because of this task. And that should be so exciting. The fact that you see yourself now as who you are, and you'll never know the kind of person you'll be in the next year, in the next 6 months, in the next week. You just don't know. You just have to keep pushing yourself and finding that deep motivation, really sinking in. What are my real insecurities? What is the thing actively holding me back? And how do I actually find joy and find a deep connection to this particular thing? I remember I saw David Goggins just say, "You're not incapable, you're just weak and lazy." And that's not him trying to insult anybody, but it's more him trying to create that wake-up call, because he found himself to be very weak and lazy at one point in his life. And when he just zoned in on what it is that he needed to do for himself, he just locked in and became a stronger, happier version of himself. Not to say that what he is doing is for everybody in the world, but the kind of philosophy of, you know what it is you need to do, you're just too weak from society and its comforts to motivate you to do hard tasks. I understand that philosophy, and even though it is coarse and rugged around the edges, I do see the profound wisdom in that, the simplicity in that, and there is something really grounding about that as well. That doesn't mean to say you need to take it to its absolute extreme like he does, in terms of pushing his body and his mind to their absolute limits, but to at least make yourself a stronger person, looking at a refreshing view of the things that do impair your progress forward as a person who wants to achieve strength, a sense of inner strength, a sense of confidence. Then it does come down to, all right, if I'm insecure about my body, for example, well, the answer seems pretty clear. I need to diet and work out. But dieting and working out are really, really tough. Of course they're tough. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to go to the gym once a week, once every other week. I'm not going to make progress, but at least I'm in the gym. And I'm not even going to focus on weight training. I'm just going to do the thing that I dislike the most and do cardio, and only cardio, for 30 minutes. And that's it. It's not about making gains. It's just about being in the gym. And then I started going to the gym more because the more that I did that, I wanted to actually start saying, okay, I actually want to be healthier. But my diet isn't going to change. I still love food, even today. And I'm just going to go to the gym more frequently and do cardio. So I did that. And then all of a sudden, after a few months, I ran the fastest mile that I ever did, even to this day, which isn't impressive, but it's 8:30, in case you're wondering, 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was never more proud of myself in my life than that moment. I felt so accomplished being able to get that done, because previously my mile time was like 11 minutes, something like that. And the fact that I bumped it down to 8:30 was huge for me. Then after that, I started thinking, wow, I feel physically good and strong. I want to start building muscle. So I started weight training and doing cardio at the end, where I'm no longer running. I'm doing incline walking as my cardio at the end. But now I'm doing muscle building as well. My diet became just naturally better over time because of this closer connection I had with wanting to be healthy, wanting to be strong. I'm not so closely tied with my own appearance. Like, I don't obsess over it, and my clothes are all things that people have just gifted me over the years. I've never actually picked out my own wardrobe, per se. There's a couple of things, but overall, it's just gifts. And when it comes to just wanting to be healthy and happy, though, that's what I was able to connect it with. And I have been eating a lot more salad recently. I used to hate salad, but now I quite enjoy it because it's very easy to make, it's very fast to make, and I love it. But I also make really good proteins and things with it that are really tasty, and I really enjoyed that as well. I became a better cook because of it. Like so many different areas of my life started growing, and it's all again because of this one domino just falling down from this relationship weakened me. I don't want to be put in this compromising position. What can I do to better myself, to give myself the confidence and grounding and inner strength I need to be better? And that started with reading a book, just a couple pages whenever I wanted to. Not that I forced myself to, but because I wanted to. And it took me a long time to get through the book, granted, a very long time. It took me over a year to get through that book. And it's just a few hundred, 300 to 400 pages long. But I got through it, and it made me a better person because of it. Because from that book came several other books that became so much faster to read. I became excited to read. I became excited to go out and socialize, to grow, to become stronger, healthier, happier. And I can't wait to see my development and strength in the next several years. And it's all because I found that deep connection to reading. So with that said, guys, I deeply appreciate all of you hearing me on this beautiful broadcast of reading, and I hope you guys learned something. If you guys have any stories of your own that you would like to share, I would love to hear them down in the comments below. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. If there are any points of contention that you guys disagree with as well, please put them down in the comments and we'll have a respectful discussion about it. But again, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening or day or wherever you are. And I will see you all in the next video. So have a wonderful rest of your evening, everyone.